Hi everyone. Okay, so for grade 4 G5, with this practice activity, we're now trying to solve for the variable with some really simple questions. So what that means is there is a letter in the equation and we want to find out what that letter represents. In the last activity, we were told, for example, r equals 6. For this one, we have to solve and find out, okay, what should this missing number be? So I've written a really simple example up the top here. We have our unknown k plus 3 equals 4. Essentially, it's like saying blank plus 3 equals 4. And I'm sure all of you are able to say, oh, obviously that must be 1 plus 3 equals 4. Which is correct. So you would say k equals 1. However, as I showed you in class before, I want you to be really familiar with how we work through the steps to solve for k systematically. So it's all about using that opposite operation in order to get k by itself on one side of the equal sign. So right now we have k plus 3 equals 4. So I want to get rid of that plus 3. I want to get it sort of on the other side of the equal sign. So I say to myself, what is the opposite of plus 3? Minus 3. But if I minus 3 from this side of the equation, this side, I have to do it from this side as well. So I put a minus 3 there and a minus 3 here. So now the plus 3 and the minus 3 cancel each other out on this side. And I end up with k equals 4 minus 3. Obviously, as we said, k equals 1. So this is an example from G5. Some of you will be able to do this in your head. You'll be able to say, okay, c minus 16 equals 17. So I'm thinking, what minus 16 equals 17? Essentially, it'll have to be 17 plus 16 together, which I'll be honest, I have a hard time doing that in my head, so I'm going to do it down here. 6 plus 7 is 13, 3 down, 1 up, 1 plus 1, 33. So I already know really that c equals 33 because it makes sense that 33 minus 16 equals 17. However, I want to show you how we would solve it if we weren't able to see that. So we have our equation, c minus 16 equals 17. We want to get c by itself. So we want to move this minus 16 over to the other side. So I say, what's the opposite of minus 16? Plus 16. So I plus 16. If I do it to this side, I have to do it to this side. So these cancel out. C equals 17 plus 16, which we just did the math down the bottom. C equals 33. And here's one final example. Something to be aware of here, just a general knowledge. When you have the 2 and the g right next to each other, that's essentially like saying 2 times g. We're seeing a lot of different ways to represent multiplication. We've seen that dot already, and now this idea of just having it right next to it if it's a variable. For example, 2x or 2c or 2k all means 2 times x, 2 times c, 2 times k. So that said, 2 times g equals 8. I'm sure you can imagine 2 times what equals 8? Obviously, it's 4. But I do want to show you as well solving it with the proper steps for when the numbers become more complex. This is a little more complicated because it involves multiplication and division. The thing to remember is keep in mind that 2 times g is the same as saying g times 2. I hope you agree with me there. If you're not sure what I mean, think about 2 times 3 is the same as saying 3 times 2. We know that's not always the case. We can't always switch them around, but that's important for this one. So here we go. 2 times g equals 8. I want to solve for g, and there's not really a sign or anything in front of the 2 to get it over the other side. So I'm actually going to switch them around and say g times 2. We just discussed we can do that. Equals 8. And then this becomes a really simple question. I want to get the times 2 to the other side. Opposite of times 2 is divided by 2. What I do to this side, I have to do to that side. These cancel out. G equals 8 divided by 2. G equals 4. Please keep in mind for a lot of this practice activity, you probably won't have to actually write down the steps. You can just figure out in your mind 2 times what equals 8, it's 4, and write that in. But I'm trying to introduce you to these specific steps because they will become important later. Okay, good luck.